I'd been flying my DLE Twin 40 for a couple of years and flying it often. Finally, it started acting up, where it sounded like it was rich, then it sounded like it was lean, and then it got to where it wouldn't start at all. Everything else seemed okay, so I figured it's time to rebuild the carburetor. I think we paid $10 or $12 for the carb kit, and that's okay since I haven't done this before. So we're going to take some pictures along the way in case I need to find my way back. That's what we got these telephones for. Now, I've heard that this hole can be wherever you want it to be, or that it has to be exactly where it is right now. So I took a picture of where the hole is, and while I was at it, I took pictures of all sides of the carburetor so I could refer to them later. I thought I'd start with this side of the carburetor because this cover made it look pretty simple under there, but it turns out there's a bunch of little pieces in here. So at every step, I made sure that I shoot a picture so I can see how it's supposed to look when I put it back together. This is the pumping diaphragm, and it's one of the things that I was worried about. I've also read that you don't have to actually see a problem with this diaphragm for there to be a problem with it, so it gets replaced anyway. And this is the stuff that's underneath that diaphragm. This little piece here is what shuts the gas off and on during the pumping cycles. We got these pieces with the rebuild kit, so this all gets replaced. And yes, I took a couple of pictures before I started taking this apart. I know you can't see it here, but under magnification I can see that there's a ring worn in that little rubber tip on the needle valve on the right. I know that wasn't doing us any favors, but these parts will get replaced whether you can see damage to them or not. Now these are pretty small pieces, and they got a spring underneath them that's compressed in the normal state, so that just makes sure that this won't lay there by itself. I found that small needle nose pliers helped me get them set in there, that I could hold it down with my finger while I put the retaining screw in. I'd like to tell you that this all went fine the first time around, but that just ain't how it happened. It did take me a couple of tries, and it went all like 5 minutes, so it's not a big deal, and I finally got them all put back together. As long as you don't bend any of these pieces, there's no settings to make while you're putting this together. And here's with the new pieces in, and it looks just like the pictures I took with the old ones in. Next I had to put the pump diaphragm in, and I had taken a picture so I could see that this little stud was facing up. Then there's a gasket that helps seal this diaphragm and the cover, and that fits over the pins, and then the cover goes back on. All that's left on this side is to put the cover on and screw it down. The cover on the opposite side of the carburetor has only one screw holding it on, but I still took a picture. I'm pretty confident that when I'm in good form I can screw up even the simple stuff, like trying to get this gasket separate from the cover. But we got it. There's not a lot of pieces under this side for us to deal with, but it's easy to keep them straight. We just want to make sure that we do. So yes, took more pictures. The filter screen is on this side, but mine was absolutely clean, so I didn't mess around with it. Between putting the old parts down as they came out and matching up the holes, it's almost impossible to get the new parts in wrong. I just made sure that all the holes lined up and that it looked like the other one laying next to it. And then all the shapes in the gasket also make this one just about impossible to put on wrong. You can see here that I haven't looked underneath that cover laying in the background. I didn't think there was any locating pins, so I just kind of held everything in place with my fingers. Then I picked up the cover and happened to look underneath and went, oh. So everything fits on the cover over those pins, and then you put it on and everything's exactly right. And then with the cover line, you just stick the center screw in and tighten that up. Here again, there's nothing on this side that needs adjusting. We just make sure we put it all in the right order and facing the right way. Now I just make sure that the choke and throttle plates are both centered and work freely, and we're ready to put this back on the airplane. I've seen a lot on some of the forums about this mount for the reed valves that not be flat, need to be sanded to get all these things to seal right. I looked these over as close as I could, and everything seems to be sealed perfectly all the way around, so I'm not going to mess around with it. This spacer helps isolate the carburetor from the heat of the motor, and we just make sure we put new gaskets on this before we put it together. I have to hook up my throttle linkage before I actually install the carburetor, otherwise I have to remove the mufflers. So I just put this rubber bander on her to hold the bolts in place while I put that throttle linkage together. And that makes working with the little screws in that throttle linkage a lot easier. Then I can remove the rubber band and everything stays together, and I can just lift it up and start the screws to hang the muffler back on the motor. There's only 2 screws here, but this is something that I always take my time and draw them up evenly. You don't want to go putting a lot of pressure on one side of this and not the other. I left the adjustment screws as they were before the rebuild. I know I got gas to the carburetor, I'll just choke it for a little bit. And there we go. Now I can turn the choke off and see if it'll start and run. This motor has always been very easy to start, which is one of the reasons I decided to rebuild the Carb in the first place. Boy howdy. I let it warm up some and found out that we had to lean it out quite a bit to get it back to where it was before, but it's been running great ever since. Rebuilding a carburetor isn't tough, expensive, or it doesn't take very long, but it sure can make a motor run a whole bunch better, and that makes flying a lot more fun.